Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of India International Center and Mr. Benoy K. Behl. Today's illustrated talk marks 30 years since Mr. Behl first gave his talk, Ajanta Rediscovered, for India International Center in 1991. At that time, Mr. Behl became famous around the world for his unique photography in low light of the Ajanta paintings, with which he had revealed their true colors and details for the first time. 20 years ago, Mr. Behl and his office digitally restored the Ajanta paintings and other ancient murals of India to reveal what they may have looked like many centuries ago. This work was done with painstaking care and was guided not only by Mr. Behl's eye as an art historian, but also his deep intimacy with the paintings of Ajanta. During the course of the pandemic, Mr. Behl has had occasion to look at his early work and has decided to bring the legacy of this labor of love before the world. This work has also recently been saved in the Arctic World Archive, Norway, to be preserved for posterity. About the speaker Benoy K. Behl. How does one speak of an art historian who is a respected speaker at a breathtakingly long list of prestigious universities and museums worldwide, yet art history is only one part of his life's mission? He is a filmmaker who has made over 145 deeply researched documentary films. He is an eminent photographer, Buddhist scholar, and record-setting traveler. Mr. Behl is the first Indian about whom the American National Geographic magazine has done an extensive story. BBC World News have carried 3 news items about his work in India and in Vietnam. His book, The Ajanta Caves, is among the most widely read books on Indian art history in the world. In 2023, Thames and Hudson London are bringing out a new edition of the book, including his restored images, which you are about to see this evening. Behl's book, The Art of India, Sculpture and Mural Painting, in 2 volumes, has been recently published. It is a rare book which presents Indian art from all over the vast country, including remote and high-altitude regions. His book, Buddhism, the Path of Compassion, covers the Buddhist heritage of the world in 20 countries. Before Behl's work, the history of Indian painting was studied from the medieval period onwards. His documentation has clearly established the fact that there was a continuous and great tradition of painting in India coming from ancient times. Ladies and gentlemen, art historian, filmmaker, and photographer Benoy K. Behl presents Ajanta Digitally Restored. Over to Mr. Behl now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sujata Chatterjee. My grateful thanks are owed to the India International Center, who since 1979 have very kindly been showing my films and holding my lectures, beginning with my film on Another Look at Khadi. My heartfelt thanks to Mr. N.N. Bora, President of IIC, for his warm invitation to me to give this talk today. And it is always such a pleasure to work with Tete the Director Programs of IIC. Thank you so much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Lawrence Benyon, the director of the British Museum, wrote in 1930 that whoever begins a study of the Buddhist art of China and Japan begins on a long journey which will eventually bring him to Ajanta. Such is the fundamental importance of the paintings of Ajanta in Asian art. In 1990, the Archaeological Survey of India brought to my attention that these important paintings had never been clearly photographed, owing to the fact that strong lights are not allowed inside the caves, as these would damage the ancient paintings. I was already becoming a little known at that time for having, they say, invented a technique of photography in extremely low light, which I used then to photograph these paintings in 1991. The photography was very well received, and scholars around the world said that they had never seen the paintings of Ajanta in their true colors and details, like my photography had now revealed. I was invited immediately by the most important museums and universities of the world to come and lecture and to show these paintings. So that was the British Museum, the Victoria and Albert Museum, the University of London, the Smithsonian Institution, the Tokyo National University, etc. There was a very large number of institutions that very kindly called me to show this work. And you would be happy to know that there was a unanimous response of the art historians and art critics who were gathered at these capitals of art of the world. And that unanimous response, ladies and gentlemen, was that these paintings of Ajanta must surely be the finest art of humankind. And they took pains to mention that there was much in the paintings, much technical virtuosity in the paintings, which, for instance, the art of the Western world only acquired in 1,000 years later, in the period of the late Renaissance. There were other qualities they found in the paintings, which in fact they said that Western art had achieved only later than the Renaissance. It is only these qualities which were only found in the Impressionist paintings and in the Expressionist paintings. But more than all this technical virtuosity of which there was so much, what makes these paintings so valuable for the world and so truly beautiful is the vision of life which they contain. It is a vision which sees the same in you and me and in all the animals, the birds, the trees, the flowers. It is the same spirit which moves in all that there is. And it is this which imparts a great compassion to every line, every stroke of the painter's brush. And it is this which makes these paintings so very special. However, it was only when in the next year, in 1992, I photographed the paintings of the end 10th century of the Brihadishvara temple at Tanjavur that art historians internationally informed me that they would have to revise their understanding of the history of Indian painting. And when I asked why is that so, I was told that the paintings of Ajanta had been known, but because paintings in India before Ajanta were not known, and paintings in India for the next 800 years after Ajanta were not known, these Ajanta paintings had been treated like a flash in the pan. They had not been considered to be part of a continuous tradition of painting in India. And when I was now showing these 10th century paintings, which had the same technical qualities, virtuosity as the Ajanta paintings of the 5th century, then it was obvious that there was actually a great tradition of painting flowing through ancient times in India. Subsequently, I had the good fortune to go on and to document other paintings in India, remnants of paintings of the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th centuries. And so we have before us clearly established a marvelous tradition of ancient paintings, which in fact uh, is the foundation of the medieval paintings to come later. Now, the philosophy of aesthetics was developed in a very early period in India. In this, it is understood that our response when we see something truly beautiful in nature or in art is akin to Brahmanand, or the final bliss of salvation itself. For in that moment, the veils of illusion of the material world, Maya or Mithya, are lifted, and we are able to see the grace which underlies all that there is. And from that, you would understand why there was so much art in Indian temples and caves, and why art was of such fundamental importance in the ancient Indian traditions. Now, when you look at these exquisite deities that are brought before you in this art, you must remember that there are no gods in the ancient Indian philosophic tradition coming from the Upanishads. There are deities, deities who are the personifications of concepts and qualities within yourself, like wisdom, compassion, the boundless energy, the courage with which you may meet the demons of your ignorance. And when we look upon these deities, when we respond to these deities in art, when we respond to their grace, it awakens the same grace within us. And it is hoped that that grace will continue to grow within us until one day that grace fills us completely. And at that point, you have become the deity. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I will share my screen and take you into the world of these beautiful paintings. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is that enchanted place, the gorge of the Vaghura River in Western India in Maharashtra, where is located this fountainhead of the Buddhist art of the world. 31 caves were excavated here in two periods. One period around the 2nd century BCE and the second around the 5th century CE. And these caves were exquisitely sculpted and carved, and their walls and ceilings were entirely covered by beautiful paintings, some of which survive till today. Now, before I photographed these paintings, this is how the paintings were seen and known to be, because only orangish light was cast upon them, because the lights used to be running on a dimmer or running on electricity, coming through a dimmer at low voltage, so as to purposely cast only orangish light, as it was believed that the blues and greens in the paintings would damage them much more considerably. However, I had the good fortune to photograph the true colors of this painting, as you may enjoy seeing here. The blues and greens which had been lost in the orangish light were indeed beautiful. And you might notice that with this low light photography, uh, the details, look at that crown, come out so exceedingly well. And I had the good fortune of giving this talk for the India International Center on Ajanta Rediscovered back in 1991. However, there is much damage on the paintings. You see here a painting which in fact fills me with awe, because this is the oldest surviving painting of the classic tradition in India and in Asia. And this painting is of the 2nd century BCE in cave 10 of Ajanta. However, as you see, much early 20th century graffiti has obscured the paintings, and one is not able to see the painting very well. So 20 years ago, I took it upon myself and used the resources of my office to sit down and very carefully, painstakingly try to restore the paintings a little bit, so that we may get an idea of what the painting looked like. And this was the result. It's an amazing painting for the 2nd century BCE. In that period, you certainly did not easily expect to see such expressions upon the faces. In fact, the eyes are so well made, the different kinds of looks in the eyes. If you look at the figure on the left bottom, that inward look, which becomes a hallmark of ancient Indian art, that inward look which makes the Indian ancient art to be among the most beautiful work of humankind, is already here in this early period in the 2nd century BCE. And see the dancer. Even the dancer has that quality which you find in Indian art. With all the activity of the body, there is a stillness of expression. There is a stillness in the eyes. Beautiful. You would, of course, notice the clothing, you would notice the wonderful jewelry, and so much more. And so this is that wonderful painting of the 2nd century BCE. Now, even of the 5th century period, the paintings were considerably damaged. In fact, in around 1930, Italian restorers were called by the Nizam of Hyderabad, under whose rule came the Ajanta caves at that time. And they covered the paintings with shellac, a kind of varnish, which they thought at that time was the best way to preserve the paintings. However, with time, the shellac aged, it yellowed in color, it collected soot and blackened, and the paintings were, to a large extent, obscured. Now, this is a painting of a dark princess, 5th century painting in Cave 1, which had been spoken about by early visitors and British artists and art historians as a very beautiful painting. Yet, there's not much that one could see. So, using also the reference of early painted reproductions to get the color right, and with due care, I was able to work on the painting, and indeed, some of the beauty definitely can still be seen. How marvelous at an early age, what depth of expression, what sheer beauty, what a heritage, what a marvelous tradition of art we have here. So also here is another masterpiece which shows Yashodhara and Rahul in front of Gautama Siddhartha Buddha. They're looking up at him. And there is, of course, a lot of damage which obscures the painting. So very carefully, very gently, the least amount of restoration really, just enough to make the painting more visible for us. And there you are. You might notice the stray curl of hair upon her right shoulder, which in a way accentuates the fact that she is pining. Her husband has left her and gone away, and she is pining. You might also notice the play of light, which is done much in the way that we use light in photography even today. We call it side light and backlight to bring out the roundedness of the human form. And such is the beauty of the work of these paintings of around the 5th century. The glorious Vajrapani, Bodhisattva Vajrapani, bearer of the thunderbolt, bringing before us the majesty of the spirit. Marvelous painting, though you would notice that there is damage, there's a little damage everywhere. You would notice the damage on the crown. So just a little restoration, which helps to reveal the painting more clearly without the distraction of the damage. And here he is, the Vajrapani, the bearer of the Vajra. The Vajra is one of the very earliest symbols in Indian thought and art. It is the thunderbolt, and it is also carried by Lord Indra, one of the earliest deities seen in Indian art. You see him, his earliest representation of the 2nd century BCE in the Buddhist caves at Bhaja. And the Vajra continues till today. One of the latest form of Buddhism popular around the world is called Vajrayana Buddhism, the vehicle of the thunderbolt, as its logic is supposed to be as clear and as striking as a thunderbolt. And so we have here the majesty of the spirit. And also in Cave 1, you have the Bodhisattva Padmapani, and it's always recognized to be one of the greatest masterpieces of the Ajanta paintings of around the 5th century. And there is some damage you will notice on his eye and in so many other places. And here we are, a little restored, just so that we are not distracted by the damage. And whereas the Vajrapani had shown us the majesty of the spirit within us, the Padmapani, the bearer of the lotus, brings before us the peace of the spirit within us. With all the activity of life around, he looks within. It is this look within. It is this peace to be found within, which is the subject of ancient Indian art. It takes us away from the noise and clamor of the material world around to the joy which can only be found within us. One of my earliest favorites among the Ajanta paintings are these two figures looking towards King Mahajanak, who is riding out of the palace, leaving his worldly life behind. He's going to become an ascetic. And the two of them are looking with infinite compassion at King Mahajanak. And it is this spirit of caring for others which fills the world of these paintings. The thousands of figures which are painted across the walls of Ajanta are filled with this immense warmth, this concern, this kindness towards others. And I've always called this particular detail the glance of compassion. How beautiful it is. And here we have a painting from the Shutdown Jatak in cave 17. And again, it has been a little restored to make it more visible. The Shutdown Jatak was about these large, it showed these large elephants. You would notice the feet of one elephant in the upper right part of this frame. So while the painter made such large creatures of the world, if you look at the branch of the tree close to this man's head, I'll take you to a closer view and a restored one. And yes, those are ants climbing up that tree. And if you go to Ajanta, you most likely will not see them. But for the painter, the world would not be complete without these little ants. Immense lessons are to be learned from the vision of compassion of the painters of ancient times. Such marvelous warmth for all of existence. And in cave 2, again, for around the 5th century CE period, the birth of Buddha, and a little restored to make it easier for you to see. There is Queen Maya from under whose raised arm Gautama Siddhartha was born, and you have Lord Indra and Lord Brahma who have come to receive the baby. And here one may mention that Indra and Brahma still continue to be deeply worshipped in Buddhism. In fact, even till today, all the Buddhist temples of Japan have representations of Indra and Brahma. And of course, as I mentioned before, The earliest representation of Lord Indra in India is in the Buddhist cave of Bhaja in Western India, Maharashtra. And Queen Janapada Kalyani, wife of King Nanda, half brother of the Buddha. I'll take you to a little restored, more visible painting. And in fact, her husband, King Nanda, had also renounced the world, and he has come back to the palace door as a bhikshu begging for alms. And here is the queen scene inside. And how beautifully the whole painting is made, how beautifully the eyes are made, the different expressions are made. If you look at the queen with that deeply thoughtful expression upon her face, if you look at the attendant, the palace maid in front of her, you see the great caring upon her face. You see the figure further down to the right corner. The expressions, the caring which is shown, it is most unexpected in art of this early period, and it is a treasure which, and I hope that this restoration will help people to be able to see these paintings more clearly, appreciate them a little more, and help to preserve this great legacy. And Queen Shivali, in a painting of Cave 1 around the 5th century CE. I'll take you, there's much damage. You will notice the damage of the nose, the damage in the lower part of the picture, take you to a little restored image. And well, Queen Shivali is here, hearing the news from her husband, King Mahajanaka, a bodhisattva, a being on his way to salvation, a previous birth of Lord Buddha. She's hearing from him that he is going to be giving up the palace and going out into the forest as an ascetic. Now her eyes are painted in a very particular way. By the time these paintings were made, in fact, the earliest known treatise on art making in the world, the Chitra Sutra, had been penned. And the Chitra Sutra gives thousands of guidelines to the painter on how to make landscapes, how to make animals, how to make trees and birds and flowers and different kinds of human beings and different expressions upon their faces. And as a part of that, there are 5 different shapes of eyes which are suggested, which would convey different expressions. And Queen Shivali's eyes here are painted exactly in the way of a person who is sad or weeping, as indeed you may expect her to be, because her husband is saying that he is going to leave her and go away into the forest. You might notice her lower garment, which is woven in the form of ikkat, which is practiced till today across the Deccan, the Western Deccan in Maharashtra, the Eastern Deccan in Andhra Pradesh. And her upper garment, for there is an upper garment which is practically transparent, and you will see some design upon it on her hip. This upper garment reminds you that India was at that time very famous for its finest of textiles. In fact, Pliny the Elder in Rome is writing in the 1st century that Roman coffers are being emptied for buying too many fine textiles from India. A century later, Emperor Vesuvian is saying practically the same thing. Now, I'll draw your attention to the strings of pearls which dangle below her bosom. And you might notice the curve in those pearl strings. And it is that curve which persuades your eye of the movement. And such exquisite details were not only already being made at that time in these paintings, but in fact they're also mentioned for the artist to note and follow in the Chitra Sutra. Amazing details. We move on to other Buddhist paintings, scarcely seen, practically unknown, of the 5th century. And this is in the Buddhist caves of Pitalkhoda, about an hour and a half drive down the highway away from Ellora caves. And here you have again that exquisite expressions, the beautiful eyes, the gentlest of expressions. And again, painting of the Buddhist tradition of the 5th century. And here is another detail from the 5th century paintings of Pitalkhoda. And with a little restoration, a little clearer. And this is a worshipper. Now, the worshipper is a chori bearer, even though he is gloriously crowned. He's got a glorious crown. And yet, as a devotee, he bears a chori, a whisk. And such is the humility which you see even of the rulers of ancient times. Before the rule of the spirit, before the importance of the spirit within us, before the importance of the spiritual journey, even regal figures with such crowns become humble, and you find them bearing a chori. This has sometimes confused some Western art historians because they've not been able to figure out, is it a chori bearer or is it a crowned regal figure? And here we see the earliest surviving painting of the Hindu tradition. This is of the 6th century CE, and the painting of queen and attendants that you see here is from the caves of Badami, which have caves of the Jain and Hindu traditions. And again, though not much survives on those cave walls today, in fact, even what I had seen and photographed back in 2001, even this is not so much surviving as was found by National Geographic when National Geographic were doing a story about my work and going to the places that I had photographed. They were not able to find really identify this painting at all. So I'm glad that I managed to photograph it in 2001. And well, here you are, digitally restored 20 years ago. And you would notice that same gentleness of expression, that tender expression, those inward looks, which gives so much beauty, so much meaning to this art, which helps us to begin our own journey within. Badami, 6th century, earliest painting of the Hindu tradition, which survives today. And here we have the great Brihadishvara temple of the end of the 10th century at Tanjavur. And though you can't make out in this photograph very well, but there is a metal stairway going up to the side of the tower, which takes you inside an inner ambulatory, which goes around the Garbhagriha, and that has paintings on it going up to a height of 20 feet. And these paintings had not been clearly photographed before until I was asked to take the photographs in 1992. And the absolutely glorious paintings which helped me to establish a continuous tradition of painting in India. And well, there is in many instances a fair amount of damage of the paintings. And here you see a little restored image of this worshipper. And you would see, as in the other ancient art that you saw, that infinite gentleness of expression. It is a worshipper that awakens the feeling of worship and adoration within you. You that grace fills you when you look at this humble, beautiful, graceful figures. So this is the end of the 10th century, Bradishvara temple at Tanjavur. And here you have another detail from the Brihadishvara 10th century paintings, and a little restored for you to be able to see this more clearly. And this is looks like it is a panda from Banaras carrying his very typical little sunshade, and in his hand he has what looks like a Janampatri, or the astrological details of somebody's birth time. And marvelous paintings which are which convey exactly in terms of expression and in terms of technical virtuosity. The painter seems to be fully in control of his medium. And here we move on to an early Buddhist monastery at Nako, at about 13,500 feet altitude in a trans-Himalayan part of Kinnaur in Himachal Pradesh. And these paintings were made by Kashmiri artists who were invited for the purpose of painting and sculpting a legendary chain of 108 Buddhist monasteries which were made in the around the 11th century in Ladakh, Lahore Spiti, Kinnaur, and Western Tibet. And they were exquisitely painted by the Kashmiri artists. And this was just about a century or so after Abhinav Gupta, one of the best known Indian philosophers of aesthetics, was living in the valley of Kashmir. Truly, the art of Kashmir is some of the finest art of the Buddhist and Hindu tradition. And this again is a mandala deity in Nako, same location as you just saw the last detail. And these are all very finely made small paintings. This roundel inside which you see this painting would be just about less than just about 3 inches inside across in diameter. And yet within that small space, such grace is captured so beautifully. That tilt of the head, that beautiful lyrical grace, which reminds you that there is an end to the sorrow of the world. Naku, Kinnaur, around the 11th century. And the tradition of painting, the tradition of Buddhist paintings, traveled from the shores of India to the many countries of Asia. And this painting that you see is from Polonnaruwa in Sri Lanka. And these are again Buddhist paintings. And you see this devotee here. And these paintings are very similar to the paintings of the Brihadishvara temple. And indeed, there was the influence of the Cholas in this part of Sri Lanka at that time. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, I come to the end of this brief selection of paintings, restored paintings, which I had put together for you to show you this evening. I must share that it has been a glorious journey. It has been a wonderful journey since I photographed the paintings of Ajanta for the first time. It has been many moments of bliss, of joy, of peace. This tradition has been very enriching for me, and I hope a little enriching for those that have had the good fortune to share it with. My many thanks once again to the India International Center for this opportunity to share all this with you. Thank you all so much.